asked David what was going on because they hadn't committed to making the show.
The therapy sessions were real. The mobsters were real. And somewhere between panic attacks and contract killings, a New Jersey crime boss changed television forever. But behind Tony Soprano's rise to power, nothing was planned. The ducks were an accident. The Russian escaped by mistake. And the star nearly quit the show that made him a legend. These are 20 weird facts about The Sopranos. And buried in the violence, and ending so controversial, home box office fought it for months and lost. Forget about it. This gets dark. Number 20. The ducks in the pool were completely random.
At first it felt like ginger ale in my skull.
David Chase didn't plan the most essential metaphor in The Sopranos. He didn't workshop it with writers or develop it through careful consideration of theme and character. The ducks that appear in the pilot episode, the ones that trigger Tony's first panic attack and become a recurring symbol throughout the series, came from pure accident. Chase was sitting by his own pool one morning when a family of ducks landed in the water, stayed for a while, and then flew away. He watched them go and felt an unexpected wave of sadness, a strange emptiness at their departure that he couldn't fully explain. That personal moment became the emotional foundation of the entire show. Chase wrote the duck scene into the pilot, making it the catalyst for Tony's therapy journey and the visual representation of his deepest fears about family, loss, and his inability to protect the people he loves. When Tony watches the ducks leave, taking their babies with them, he has a panic attack that sends him to Dr. Melfi's office and sets the entire series in motion. The inspiration's randomness is remarkable. If Chase hadn't been sitting by his pool that particular morning, if the ducks had landed somewhere else, the entire structure of The Sopranos might have been different. The show might have started with violence or crime instead of vulnerability and therapy. That accidental moment of watching real ducks shaped how audiences understood Tony Soprano from the very first episode, establishing him not as a simple monster, but as a complex man terrified of loss and change. One random morning, one family of ducks, and television doctorama were transformed. Number 19. Tony's therapy scenes were filmed in a real psychiatrist's office.
Stick your head in the sand, because that's what people like you do.
Discredit psychology all you want, but
Most television shows build sets that look like real locations, controlled environments where lighting, camera angles, and sound can be perfectly managed. David Chase took a different approach with Dr. Melfi's office, one of The Sopranos' most important recurring locations. He wanted absolute authenticity, the feeling that audiences were watching real therapy sessions in a real therapist's office. So instead of building a set, the production found an actual psychiatrist's office in Caldwell, New Jersey, and rented it for filming throughout the series' entire run. The office belonged to a practicing therapist who agreed to let the production use the space when patients weren't scheduled. Everything viewers saw was real. The furniture, the decorations, the books on the shelves, the diplomas on the walls, all belonged to the actual psychiatrist who worked there. The production changed nothing, believing that the lived-in authenticity of a real working office would translate to screen in ways a set designer's interpretation never could. Filming in a real office created logistical challenges. The space wasn't designed for cameras and lighting equipment. There was limited room for crew members. Scheduling had to work around the therapist's actual patient appointments. But Chase insisted the difficulties were worth it because the authenticity was irreplaceable. When James Gandolfini and Lorraine Bracco performed their therapy scenes, they were sitting in chairs where real people had experienced real therapy, surrounded by the accumulated details of an actual practice. That environmental authenticity affected the performances. Both actors said the real office made the scenes feel more genuine, helped them access the vulnerability and honesty their characters needed. The therapy sessions became The Sopranos' emotional core, and filming them in that real New Jersey psychiatrist's office gave them a groundedness that a studio set could never have provided. Number 18. James Gandolfini would disappear before violent scenes.
So why the fuck would you give me a hard time and talk to me like I'm nothing to worry about?
I'm sorry.
James Gandolfini approached Tony Soprano with intense psychological commitment that went far beyond typical television acting. He didn't just perform the character, he inhabited him, carried him, suffered under the weight of portraying a violent, complicated man for years. And that commitment took a visible toll, manifesting in strange behavior that nobody around him could fully understand. Before filming scenes where Tony had to commit violence, especially murder, Gandolfini would simply vanish. He wouldn't tell anyone where he was going. He wouldn't answer his phone. He would just disappear for hours, sometimes for an entire day or more, leaving production scrambling to adjust schedules and worried about whether he would return in time to film. Co-stars, directors, and producers never knew where he went during these absences. Some speculated he was driving aimlessly. Others thought he might be sitting alone somewhere, trying to access the darkness required to play a killer convincingly. When he finally returned to the set, he would be ready to film, completely prepared to deliver the brutal performance required. But the process of getting there remained mysterious to everyone around him. Gandolfini never thoroughly explained what he was doing during those disappearances, where he went, or what psychological preparation he was undertaking. He kept that part of his process private, perhaps because he couldn't articulate it, or probably because sharing it would diminish its effectiveness. The disappearances became an accepted part of working with Gandolfini. Production learned to build extra time into schedules before violent scenes, knowing he might vanish and need space. His commitment to authenticity, whatever form that commitment took, was respected even when it created logistical nightmares. Number 17. The Bada Bing was a real strip club.
We are getting ready to auction off some items on eBay that were featured in...
The Bada Bing strip club served as Tony Soprano's second office throughout The Sopranos, the location where business was conducted, loyalty was tested, and the crew gathered between criminal enterprises. The club felt authentic because it was authentic. The production didn't build a set or create a fictional location. They found Satin Dolls, an actual strip club in Lodi, New Jersey, and transformed it into the Bada Bing for filming, while it continued operating as a real business when cameras weren't rolling. The arrangement created a strange double life for Satin Dolls. During filming days, it was a television set with actors, crew, and controlled performances. On non-filming nights, it remained a functioning strip club with real customers, authentic dancers, and real business. The production left the Bada Bing signage and decorations in place even when not filming, and the club's real-world business actually increased because Sopranos fans started showing up specifically because they recognized it from television. Then something stranger happened. Real mobsters started frequenting Satin Dolls because of its association with The Sopranos. Men with actual connections to organized crime would come to the club, sit in the same booths where Tony Soprano conducted fictional business, and apparently conduct their own real business in a location that had become famous for depicting fictional crime. The line between reality and performance blurred in ways nobody had anticipated. The club's owners embraced the confusion, marketing Satin Dolls as the real Bada Bing and charging fans for tours and photo opportunities. The location that was supposed to represent a fictional criminal headquarters became an actual gathering place for real criminals who appreciated the authenticity. Number 16. Lorraine Bracco turned down Carmela to play Dr. Melfi.
So I read the script, and the script was brilliant. It was one of those times.
When David Chase started casting The Sopranos, he had specific ideas about which actors should play which roles. Lorraine Bracco, known for her work in Goodfellas and other crime films, seemed perfect for Carmela Soprano, Tony's wife. The role was substantial and complex, offering an actress opportunities to explore the moral compromises and emotional suffering of a mob wife who benefits from criminal wealth while pretending not to know its source. Chase offered the role to Bracco first, assuming she would accept what appeared to be the show's major female part. Bracco read the script and made a decision that surprised everyone. She didn't want to play Carmela, she wanted to play Doctor. Jennifer Melfi, Tony's therapist, has a minor role with less screen time and less obvious doctoramatic potential. Chase tried to convince her otherwise, explaining that Carmela was the bigger part with more storylines and greater prominence. Bracco didn't care. She was drawn to Melfi's intellectualism, her ethical struggles, and the unique dynamic of a psychiatrist treating a patient she knows is a murderer. Chase eventually agreed, casting Bracco as Dr. Melfi, and moving on to find someone else for Carmela. That someone else was Edie Falco, who had auditioned for other roles and hadn't been Chase's first choice for the mob wife. Falco essentially won the role of Carmela by default after Bracco's unexpected decision, and she went on to win 3 Emmy Awards for the role, becoming one of The Sopranos' most critically acclaimed performers. Bracco's choice to play the therapist rather than the wife fundamentally shaped both the characters and the performances. Falco brought something to Carmela that might have been different under another actress, and Bracco's Melfi became iconic in ways that redefined how therapists were portrayed on television. Number 15. The cat, in the final season, stared at Christopher's photo. The Sopranos' final season introduced a stray cat that wandered into Satriale's pork store and refused to leave. The cat became a strange presence in several episodes, creating tension among the crew members who interpreted its behavior through their superstitious worldview. But the most bizarre detail about the cat wasn't scripted or trained. It happened completely naturally and disturbed everyone on set enough that some cast members refused to be in the same room with the animal. The cat would sit and stare at a photograph of Christopher Moltisanti, the character whom Tony had recently killed. Not just glance at it occasionally, but fixate on it for extended periods, staring intently at Christopher's image while ignoring everything else happening around it. Animal trainers on set had no explanation. They hadn't trained the cat to stare at the photo. They hadn't used treats or cues to direct its attention. The cat simply chose to stare repeatedly at Christopher's picture, creating an unsettling coincidence that felt too specific to be random. Paulie Walnuts, the character most disturbed by the cat, was played by Tony Soprano, who shared his character's superstitious nature. Soprano became genuinely uncomfortable around the cat and insisted there was something unnatural about its behavior. Other cast members joked about it being Christopher's spirit trapped in the cat's body, but the jokes carried an edge of real unease. David Chase loved the accidental eeriness and wrote it into the show, with characters commenting on the cat's strange fixation and interpreting it through their own supernatural beliefs. What started as unexplained animal behavior became part of The Sopranos' final season mythology, another example of reality providing better material than anything writers could have planned. Number 14. Vito's gay storyline was suggested by the actor.
I think I had 2. I'm in the books for 2. And then I had to suggest.
One of The Sopranos' most controversial and groundbreaking storylines emerged not from the writer's room, but from an actor's pitch. Joseph Ganascoli, who played Vito Spatafore, approached David Chase with an unusual idea. He suggested his character, a brutal mobster and captain in the family, be revealed as secretly gay. In a world where toxic masculinity and homophobia were foundational to mob culture, the storyline seemed impossibly risky. But Chase loved the audacity of it. The decision transformed Vito from a minor character into a central figure whose arc explored the brutal intersection of identity and survival in organized crime. The storyline showed Vito fleeing to New Hampshire, attempting to build a new life away from mob scrutiny, only to be discovered and face horrific consequences. It was unflinching television that forced audiences to confront the mob's savage intolerance while humanizing a character trapped between 2 incompatible worlds. Ganascoli's pitch came from understanding his character's potential rather than any personal connection to the storyline. He recognized that revealing Vito's hidden life would create doctoramatic tension and examine aspects of mob culture rarely explored in fiction. Chase and the writers expanded on the idea, crafting a multi-episode arc that became one of the show's most discussed and debated elements. What started as an actor's creative suggestion became essential to The Sopranos' examination of masculinity, loyalty, and the costs of living double lives. Number 13. Many actors were actually connected guys.
Changed
and that
my
was
life,
from a
and
true
that's
life story of the New York mob, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a crew in Brooklyn.
The Sopranos achieved authenticity partly by casting people who knew the world intimately from personal experience. The production hired numerous extras and bit players who weren't professional actors, but actual people with connections to organized crime. Some were reformed criminals trying legitimate careers. Others had family ties to mob life. A few were reportedly still active in criminal enterprises, using acting gigs as supplemental income or cover for other activities, federal investigators noticed. The FBI, already monitoring various organized crime figures in New Jersey and New York, discovered that some of their surveillance targets were appearing on the Sopranos set. Agents would track a suspected mobster to a filming location and watch him perform as a background extra in a scene depicting the exact criminal world he actually inhabited. The overlap between fiction and reality became so significant that law enforcement considered whether the show itself might be facilitating criminal activity. These connected cast members brought unscripted authenticity to their performances. They knew how mobsters stood, talked, and moved because they had lived that life. Their presence on set created an atmosphere that professional actors couldn't fully replicate, adding texture and credibility to scenes that might otherwise have felt like Hollywood's sanitized version of organized crime. David Chase valued this authenticity enough to accept the complicated ethical and legal implications of employing people whose real lives mirrored their fictional roles. Number 12. The Russian, in Pine Barrens, was never supposed to survive.
The action at the end. And Pine Barrens, it was done.
Pine Barrens is widely considered the Sopranos' most fantastic episode, a darkly comic masterpiece where Paulie and Christopher chase a Russian mobster into the snowy New Jersey woods and lose him. The episode's enduring power comes partly from its ambiguity. The Russian disappears into the wilderness, and viewers never learn whether he survived, died, or escaped. That unresolved mystery has sparked debate for decades. But the ambiguity wasn't planned. It resulted from a simple oversight. Writer Terrence Winter forgot to write about the Russian's death. The script was supposed to show definitively what happened to the character, providing closure to the chase. But Winter got so caught up in the episode's momentum, in Paulie and Christopher's suffering and bickering in the frozen woods, that he simply never circled back to resolve the Russian's fate. By the time he realized the omission, filming was complete. Winter expected David Chase to demand reshoots or additional scenes clarifying the Russian's outcome. Instead, Chase loved the accidental ambiguity. He felt the unresolved ending was more interesting, more true to life, where questions don't always get answered and loose ends remain loose. The decision to leave it mysterious became one of The Sopranos' most discussed creative choices, proof that sometimes the best storytelling comes from accidents rather than meticulous planning. Number 11. Gandolfini's Rolex watches were his own. Tony Soprano's expensive tastes extended to his wristwear, with the character frequently sporting luxury Rolex watches that signaled his wealth and status. Television productions typically use prop watches or inexpensive lookalikes that photograph well without risking valuable timepieces during stunts or physical scenes. But James Gandolfini rejected that approach entirely. Every Rolex that appeared on Tony Soprano's wrist throughout the series was Gandolfini's personal property, watches he had purchased himself and chose to wear on camera. Gandolfini owned an extensive collection of high-end watches and rotated them throughout filming, selecting different pieces for different scenes based on instinct rather than War Doctorobe department recommendations. He felt that wearing real watches rather than props added to his sense of being Tony, that the weight and feel of genuine luxury on his wrist helped him access the character's mentality. The watches were worth tens of thousands of dollars each, and War Doctorobe departments worried constantly about damage or loss. But Gandolfini's generosity with his possessions extended beyond lending them to production. He occasionally gave expensive watches to crew members as gifts, thank yous for their work, or gestures of appreciation that reflected both his character's mob generosity and his own personal kindness. Camera operators, directors, and other behind-the-scenes workers received Rolex watches from Gandolfini, gifts that were as unexpected as they were valuable, cementing his reputation as someone who treated his success as something to share rather than hoard. Number 10. The finale was shot in complete secrecy.
It just said fade to black. I read the script, but I didn't get that.
David Chase knew the series finale would be intensely scrutinized, analyzed, and debated. He also knew that if the ending leaked before broadcast, it would ruin the experience he had carefully crafted. So, he implemented security measures unprecedented for television production. Only 5 people knew the true ending, Chase himself, the director, the cinematographer, the editor, and one trusted producer. Everyone else, including most of the cast, worked with incomplete information. Chase wrote fake script pages for the finale's final scene, distributing different versions to different actors, so no one except those directly involved knew what was actually being filmed. When shooting the famous final scene at Holston's Diner, the set was closed entirely. Crew members not essential to filming were barred from the location. Actors who weren't in the scene received false call sheets directing them to other locations. James Gandolfini knew the ending because he had to perform it. Still, Edie Falco and the other family members at the table reportedly didn't fully understand what Chase intended until they watched the finished episode. The cut to black that ended the series was kept secret from nearly everyone involved in production, ensuring that audiences and cast members experienced the shock simultaneously. Chase's paranoia about leaks was justified. When the finale aired, its abrupt ending became an instant cultural conversation, specifically because nobody had been warned or prepared. Number 9. Steven Van Zandt had never acted before. When David Chase cast Steven Van Zandt as Silvio Dante, Tony Soprano's consigliere and trusted advisor, he was taking an enormous gamble. Van Zandt wasn't an actor. He was a musician, best known as a guitarist for Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band, and for his own music career. He had never taken an acting class, never auditioned for anything, never performed in a play or appeared in a film. His entire professional life had been devoted to music, making his casting in a major home box office doctorama seem insane to network executives who questioned Chase's judgment. But Chase saw something in Van Zandt beyond traditional acting credentials. He recognized a presence, an authenticity, and a musicality of movement that would translate to the screen even without formal training. Van Zandt's lack of acting experience meant he had no bad habits to unlearn, no theatrical mannerisms to suppress. He approached Silvio as a musician approaches a new song, finding the character's rhythm and voice through instinct rather than technique. The gamble paid off spectacularly. Van Zandt created one of The Sopranos' most iconic characters, delivering Silvio's distinctive voice, exaggerated hair, and deliberate movements with perfect pitch. His performance earned critical praise and demonstrated that sometimes the best casting choices come from looking beyond professional actors to find people who simply embody a character naturally, regardless of their resumes or training. Number 8. Paulie Walnut's mannerisms were based on his real aunt.
You didn't have no baby.
I did.
Tony. Sirico brought unforgettable physicality to Paulie Walnuts, creating a character whose distinctive hand gestures, speech patterns, and body language became instantly recognizable. Every gesture, every peculiar vocal inflection seemed perfectly calibrated to create a unique human being who felt completely real despite being obviously theatrical. The authenticity came from an unusual source. Sirico wasn't inventing these mannerisms. He was directly channeling his actual aunt, the woman who had raised him in Brooklyn. Sirico's aunt had specific ways of moving her hands when she talked, particular rhythms in her speech, and distinctive reactions to stress or excitement. Sirico studied her throughout his childhood, absorbing these patterns unconsciously. When he created Paulie, he deliberately pulled from those memories, recreating his aunt's physicality in a male mobster's body. The hand wings when Paulie got excited, the way he held his shoulders, even his facial expressions were drawn directly from this honest woman who had no connection to mob life. The choice created fascinating gender complexity in Paulie's character. His mannerisms carried a performative quality that some viewers interpreted as revealing hidden aspects of his personality, while others simply saw them as eccentric mobster quirks. Sirico never thoroughly explained the connection publicly during the show's run, allowing audiences to interpret Paulie's distinctive style without knowing its source. The performance was both completely authentic, rooted in real observation, and entirely constructed, a deliberate artistic choice that blurred lines between truth and fiction. Number 7. The FBI investigated the show's mob consultants.
The Di Cavalcante crime family is truly the inspiration for The Sopranos, right? And I know that for a fact. I know that because
David Chase hired consultants with intimate knowledge of organized crime to ensure The Sopranos depicted mob life accurately. These weren't academics or journalists. They were people who had lived in that world, understood its codes and structures from personal experience. Some were former criminals who had left that life. Others had family connections that gave them insider knowledge. Their input made the show's portrayal of mob operations, hierarchies, and culture feel authentic in ways that research alone could never achieve. The FBI noticed and became concerned. Federal agents were already conducting ongoing investigations into organized crime activities in New Jersey and New York. When they discovered that some people connected to their investigations were also consulting for The Sopranos, they had to consider whether the show itself might be facilitating criminal activity. Were consultants using their legitimate work as cover for continued involvement in organized crime? Were they passing information between criminals under the guise of helping with television production? The FBI placed some Sopranos consultants under surveillance, monitoring their movements and communications to determine if consulting work was genuine or a front. Agents would track these individuals to home box offices and production locations, documenting their activities and trying to determine if meetings were really about script accuracy or something more sinister. The investigation created a bizarre situation where the line between documenting crime for entertainment and participating in actual crime became genuinely unclear, even to law enforcement. Number 6. Christopher's intervention was almost entirely improvised.
Christopher, we're here to talk about your drug problem.
What?
The intervention scene in Season 4, where Tony and the crew confront Christopher about his substance addiction, is one of The Sopranos' most brutal and emotionally devastating sequences. Characters who typically maintain loyalty and omerta suddenly unleash years of resentment, telling Christopher exactly what they think of him with savage honesty. The scene feels raw, uncomfortable, and completely authentic. That authenticity came from an unusual directorial approach. The actors weren't following detailed scripts. They were largely improvising. David Chase and the episode's director gave the cast basic scenarios and character motivations, but minimal specific dialogue. They told each actor what their character's grievance with Christopher was, and what they needed to express, then let them find their own words. The result was spontaneous, messy, and emotionally genuine in ways that scripted dialogue rarely achieves. Actors draw on their own experiences with addiction, their own family conflicts, their own suppressed anger to fuel performances that felt dangerously real. Michael Imperioli, playing Christopher, didn't know precisely what would be said to him, creating genuine reactions of hurt and defensiveness rather than performing responses to memorized lines. The other actors fed off each other's energy, building intensity organically as the scene progressed. Some of the most cutting insults and painful revelations emerged in the moment, surprising everyone, including the person being attacked. The improvisation created television that felt like documentary footage of a real intervention rather than a stage performance. Number 5. Nancy Marchand filmed her final scene while dying. Nancy Marchand played Livia Soprano, Tony's manipulative and toxic mother, with such brilliance that she became essential to the show's exploration of family dysfunction and psychological damage. But Marchand was battling lung cancer and emphysema throughout production, fighting declining health while delivering increasingly complex performances. By the show's 3rd season, her condition had deteriorated to the point where she could barely work. David Chase knew he needed to write Livia out of the show, but wanted to give the character a proper conclusion. Marchand's final scene was supposed to be filmed during Season 3 production, but her health had become so critical that she was hospitalized and then moved to hospice care. She died in June 2000 before the scene could be shot. Chase faced an impossible situation. He needed closure for Livia's storyline, but had no footage of the character's final moments. The solution was technically innovative, but emotionally complicated. The production used CGI technology and archival footage from previous episodes to create Livia's final appearance. They took old shots of Marchand, digitally manipulated them, and combined them with stand-in footage to construct a scene that had never actually been filmed. The result was technically impressive but also unsettling. A digital resurrection of a deceased actress that pushed ethical boundaries about performance and consent. The The scene aired gave Livia narrative closure, but also demonstrated the strange possibilities and uncomfortable implications of using technology to extend actors' work beyond their lives. Number 4. The Sopranos house became a mob tourist trap. The real house used for exterior shots of the Soprano family home in North Caldwell, New Jersey, became an immediate tourist attraction when the show premiered. Fans arrived constantly, taking photos, walking up the doctor's driveway, peering through windows, and attempting to recreate scenes they had watched on television. The homeowners, who had simply rented their property's exterior for filming and lived everyday lives inside, found themselves besieged by Sopranos enthusiasts who treated their private residence as a public landmark. The situation escalated beyond simple annoyance into genuine harassment. Fans would throw bread into the pool, recreating the scene with the ducks from the pilot episode. Others knocked on the door, asking for tours or demanding to see specific rooms, despite being told repeatedly that the interior scenes were filmed on a soundstage elsewhere. Some trespassed into the backyard, climbed fences, and took souvenirs from the property, including plants, decorative items, and anything else they could grab as Sopranos memorabilia. The homeowners eventually installed security gates, cameras, and no trespassing signs, trying to reclaim some privacy. But the pilgrimage continued. Tour buses started, including the house as a regular stop, parking on the street while guides narrated Sopranos trivia and fans photographed the property from every angle. The family's decision to rent out their home's exterior for what seemed like easy money became a permanent invasion that transformed their quiet neighborhood into a tourist destination and made their daily lives a constant battle against intrusive fans. Number 3. Tony Sirico had a real criminal past.
I paid for them. I did what I had to do.
Tony Sirico brought authenticity to Paulie Walnuts because he had lived a version of that life before becoming an actor. His criminal past wasn't a minor youthful indiscretion, it was extensive and profound. Sirico had been arrested 28 times before pursuing acting, facing charges that included weapons possession, robbery, and assault. He spent time in prison, knew the criminal world intimately, and understood mob culture from personal experience rather than research or imagination. When David Chase cast Sirico, he was hiring someone whose understanding of criminality was genuine and deeply personal, but Sirico had conditions. He agreed to play Paulie only if the character was never written as a rat, never shown cooperating with law enforcement, or betraying the family. In mob culture, and in Sirico's personal code, there was no greater sin than informing. He would play a murderer, a thief, a violent enforcer, but absolutely never a traitor. Chase agreed to the restriction, and Paulie remained loyal throughout the series, despite numerous opportunities for the writers to have him flip. Sirico's criminal background informed every aspect of his performance, from the way he carried himself to his instinctive understanding of mob hierarchy and codes. He didn't have to imagine how a mobster would react. He knew. That authenticity made Paulie one of the show's most believable characters, a performance rooted in lived experience that no amount of acting training could replicate. Number 2. Home box office fought the ending for months.
Or during the editing process. Well, why black? Why cut to black?
David Chase knew exactly how The Sopranos would end long before filming the finale. The cut to black, the abrupt silence, the refusal to provide definitive answers about Tony's fate. All of it was meticulously planned as the only ending that made artistic sense for the story he had been telling. But home box office executives were terrified. They begged Chase to reconsider, to give audiences something more conclusive, to provide closure that wouldn't leave viewers confused and angry. The network's concerns were financially motivated. The Sopranos was home box office's biggest success, a cultural phenomenon that had defined the channel's prestige brand. Executives worried that an ambiguous ending would alienate the audience, generate negative press, and damage the show's legacy and future revenue from syndication and streaming. They wanted something safer, more traditional, an ending that would satisfy rather than frustrate. Chase refused every request, every suggestion, every plea. He told executives that changing the ending would compromise the entire series, that safe conclusions were for network television, and that home box office had built its reputation on taking creative risks. He threatened to walk away entirely if they altered his vision. The standoff lasted months, with neither side willing to compromise. Eventually, the home box office backed down. They aired the finale exactly as Chase intended, the cut to black intact. The decision was vindicated when the controversial ending sparked a massive cultural conversation, keeping The Sopranos relevant and in discussion for years after its final broadcast. Chase's artistic stubbornness created television history. Number 1, James Gandolfini, nearly quit multiple times.
You know, I saw him, he was so good in that role, even though his character wasn't always really.
Playing Tony Soprano destroyed James Gandolfini psychologically in ways that became increasingly difficult to hide as the series progressed. The role demanded that he access darkness, violence, and moral emptiness for months every year across 8 seasons. He had to embody a murderer, find empathy for a monster, and live inside a character whose worldview was fundamentally toxic. The psychological toll was immense and eventually became unbearable. Gandolfini would lock himself in his trailer for hours before filming, sometimes refusing to come out even when called to set. Crew members would hear him inside, pacing or sitting in complete silence, preparing himself mentally for whatever Tony Soprano scene awaited him. The isolation was necessary but alarming, evidence of how much the role cost him emotionally. On at least 2 occasions, Gandolfini told David Chase and home box office executives that he wanted to leave the show, that he couldn't continue playing Tony, and that the character was damaging him in ways no paycheck could justify. Chase and the network convinced him to stay both times, adjusting production schedules, offering support, doing whatever was necessary to keep their irreplaceable star. But Gandolfini's struggles were real and ongoing. The role that made him famous and wealthy also tormented him, making his success feel like punishment. When The Sopranos finally ended, Gandolfini was reportedly relieved to escape Tony Soprano's psychological prison, though the character's shadow followed him until he died in 2013. The Sopranos wasn't just television, it was therapy, violence, and ducks that meant everything. From improvised interventions to CGI ghosts, from real mobsters on set to an ending that nearly didn't happen, the show broke rules and broke its star. If these facts changed how you see Tony's world, hit like, subscribe, and tell us which weird detail shocked you most. Because sometimes the most incredible show ever made nearly destroyed everyone who touched it. Forget about it.